Eat this. Be grateful. You're lucky we even took you in.
Can I sit with everyone else?
No, that table is for family. Look at our plate. Even the dog eats better than that.
What would you do if the people who were supposed to protect you treated you like a guest who had already overstayed her welcome? That was Sophia's life, every single day. She was 8 years old the morning they buried both her parents, two coffins side by side in the red Nigerian earth. A car accident on the expressway. That was all anyone told her. 1 minute she had a home, a mother who braided her hair every Sunday morning, a father who called her my little sunshine. And the next minute, she was standing in a black dress that was too big for her small shoulders, watching strangers lower her entire world into the ground. The relatives argued over her like she was an object left behind at a scene. Nobody wanted the responsibility. Nobody. Until her uncle Chukwudi stepped forward, straightened his agbada, and said the words that should have sounded like salvation. She will come and live with us. His wife, Auntie Gloria, had smiled that day, a thin, polished smile, the kind you paste on for a funeral crowd when the cameras of community judgment are watching you. Sophia remembered clinging to that smile on the drive to their big house in GRA. She pressed her cheek against the cold car window and told herself that everything would be okay, that she still had family, that she was not alone. She was wrong. The first sign came that very evening. The house smelt of jollof rice and fried chicken, a thick, rich smell that wrapped around her hunger like a warm hand. She had not eaten all day. Grief had stolen her appetite in the morning, but now her stomach was talking. She followed the smell to the dining table where her cousins, Emeka, who was 10, and Tina, who was 9, were already seated in front of full steaming plates. Sophia stood at the edge of the table, waiting to be called. Auntie Gloria came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. She looked at Sophia the way you look at a stray that wandered through your gate. "Sit at the small table in the corner," she said. "The children are eating." Sophia blinked. "I am also a child," she said quietly. The room went still. Auntie Gloria set down the kitchen towel very slowly. "What did you just say to me?" Sophia did not repeat it. She walked to the small wooden stool near the window, the one they used when guests needed extra seating, and she sat down. A few minutes later, a plate was placed in front of her. It was the rice from the pot bottom, dry, slightly burnt, with no chicken, just rice and a thin drizzle of stew. She ate every grain, not because it was good, but because she had nowhere else to go. That night, she lay on the mattress they had placed in the storeroom, not a bedroom, a storeroom, surrounded by boxes and old furniture, and she made herself a silent promise. She would be quiet, she would be grateful, she would not cause trouble, she would earn her place in this house if she had to do it bite by small, burnt bite. She was 8 years old, and she had already learned that love could be conditional, that family was sometimes just a word people used when they needed an audience, and that hunger, real hunger, was not always about food. Sometimes it was about belonging, and Sophia was starving. The years inside that house moved like muddy water moves, slowly, heavily, leaving a film over everything it touched. Sophia grew up understanding the invisible rules of the Chukwudi household without anyone explaining them. The rules were never written down. They did not need to be. They lived in the silences, in the looks, in the way Auntie Gloria's voice changed texture when she spoke to Sophia versus when she spoke to Emeka or Tina. Emeka got new school uniforms every September. Sophia wore Tina's old ones, even when they were 2 sizes too small and the hem had come undone at the bottom. She would stitch it herself at night by lamplight, her fingers working quietly so no one could accuse her of complaining. Tina had a bedroom with a pink duvet and a dressing table with a mirror. Sophia had the storeroom. By the time she was 12, they had removed the worst of the boxes, but the room still smelled of old things, old cloth, old wood, old air. She kept it clean. She kept herself clean. She refused to let the room swallow her spirit even when it felt like it was trying. The food was the most consistent punishment. Every evening, the family sat at the big dining table, Uncle Chukudi at the head, his children on either side, Auntie Gloria moving between kitchen and table like a queen managing her court. Fresh soup, fresh rice, meat piled generously, cold drinks. And Sophia? Sophia ate what was left, always, without exception. Some evenings it was the cold eba from afternoon, hardened at ledges. Some evenings it was rice that had been reheated so many times it had lost its softness and sat in her mouth like gravel. Some evenings, the evenings she tried not to remember, there was almost nothing, and she would eat slowly, making each spoonful count, willing her stomach not to growl loud enough for the cousins to hear and laugh. Because they did laugh. Emeka was the worst. He was the kind of boy who had been told too many times that he was special and it had grown into something ugly inside him. He would walk past Sophia's plate and wrinkle his nose. "Is that what you are eating again?" Then he would laugh, mouth full of chicken, and walk away. Tina was more subtle. Tina would simply ignore her, look through her like glass, never inviting her to join their conversations, never acknowledging her presence at school when their classmates were watching. At home, among family, Sophia was tolerated. Outside, she did not exist. And Uncle Chukudi? This is the part that confused Sophia most. He was not a cruel man, not the way Auntie Gloria was. There were moments, rare, careful moments when he would pass by her in the corridor and rest his hand briefly on her head, not long enough to mean anything in front of his wife, just long enough to let Sophia know that he saw her, that she was not completely invisible. But he never defended her. He never told Gloria to treat her better. He never moved her out of the storeroom or made sure she had a full plate at dinner. He watched, he saw, and he said nothing. At 14, Sophia stopped expecting rescue. At 16, she stopped being angry about it. Not because she accepted the injustice, but because she understood with the quiet maturity that suffering gives you early that no one was coming. If she was going to survive this house, survive this family, survive the slow daily erosion of her dignity, she would have to do it herself. So, she studied. While Emeka was on the phone and Tina was watching television, Sophia was reading. She borrowed books from the school library. She stayed after class to ask teachers questions. She earned a scholarship to a federal university at 17, the first in the entire household, and no one celebrated. Auntie Gloria said, "Don't expect us to send you money every month." Uncle Chukudi said nothing. But that night, Sophia found a small envelope under her mattress. Inside was a sum of money, enough for her first semester's hostel and feeding. No name, no note. She knew who it was from. She held that envelope in the dark and cried for the first time in years. Not from sadness, from something more complicated. The grief of loving someone who could only show it in secret, who could only give you warmth when no one else was watching. She left for university the next week. She did not look back.
If you are watching this story and you know someone who raised themselves quietly, who survived on scraps, not just food, but love, dignity, attention, share this with them. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Raina Tales. University changed Sophia the way fire changes iron. It did not destroy her, it shaped her. Away from that house, away from the cold leftover plates and the storeroom and Auntie Gloria's thin smile, Sophia discovered what she was actually made of. Turns out, years of surviving on almost nothing gives you an extraordinary ability to make something out of whatever little you have. She studied estate management. It was not the most glamorous course, and her classmates sometimes wondered aloud why she chose it. Sophia never explained the full reason. The full reason was that she had spent her entire childhood watching someone else manage what should have belonged to her, and she had decided quietly that she would spend her adult life understanding exactly how property, ownership, and inheritance worked. She was not angry. She was strategic. She graduated with a first-class degree. She got a job at a property firm in Lagos. She worked harder than anyone else in that office, arriving first, leaving last, learning everything she could from every person who would teach her. Within 3 years, she had risen to a senior position. Within 5, she was managing accounts that would have made her old classmates' eyes widen. She rented a flat, small but hers. She bought her own furniture, cooked her own fresh meals, and ate from a full plate every single evening, and felt a satisfaction in that simple act that people who have never been hungry will never fully understand. She built a life, clean, quiet, deliberate, a life no one could take from her. She did not go back to Uncle Chukwudi's house. There was no dramatic break, no final confrontation, no moment of standing in the doorway and saying all the things she had swallowed over the years. She simply left and did not return. Some people call that coldness. Sophia called it survival. She sent a message every Christmas. Polite, brief, dutiful. No one called her to say they missed her. She told herself she did not care. Then came the phone call. It was a Tuesday evening in March. She was at her desk reviewing a property assessment when her phone buzzed with a number she almost did not recognize. Tina's number, updated for the first time in years. She almost did not pick up. She picked up. Sophia. Tina's voice was different. Something in it had shifted. The smooth, practiced indifference was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost like urgency. Uncle Chukwudi passed away this morning. The funeral is next week. You need to come home. Home. Sophia almost laughed at the word. She sat in the silence of her office for a long time after she ended the call. Outside, Lagos moved and shouted and honked and lived. Inside, she sat very still and let the news settle over her like dust. Uncle Chukwudi was gone. The man who took her in kept his distance, said nothing, and left a quiet envelope of money under her mattress in the dark. The man she could never fully love and never fully hate. She booked her flight that night. The house looked smaller. That was the first thing Sophia noticed when the car turned into the GRA compound. She had carried this house in her mind for almost 15 years, a looming, consuming place full of walls that judged her and tables that excluded her. But standing at the gate now, looking at the painted fence and the trimmed hedges and the same front door, it looked like what it actually was, a house, just a house. She was not the 8-year-old girl clutching a black dress that was too big anymore. She walked in with her shoulders straight. Auntie Gloria was in the sitting room, dressed in black, surrounded by relatives who had poured in from every corner of the family tree, the kind of relatives who only appear at funerals and who immediately begin calculating what is owed to them. Gloria looked older. Grief had done something to her face, taken some of the precision out of her, left the edges softer and more uncertain. She looked at Sophia and said, "You came." "Of course I came," Sophia said simply. Emeka was there, fatter now, with the look of a man who had been spending money he had not earned. He barely acknowledged her. Tina nodded, a stiff, uncomfortable nod, as if Sophia's presence reminded her of things she preferred not to think about. Sophia sat. She accepted the food people offered her. A full plate this time. No one here to give her the scraps. The funeral came and went in a haze of eulogies and wailing and the particular theatre of Nigerian burial, the spraying of money, the long prayers, and the crowd of people who all claimed to have known the deceased better than anyone else. Sophia sat through all of it and said little. She observed. She grieved in her own way, quietly, in the language she had always used. Then came the day of the will reading. The family gathered in Uncle Chukwudi's study, a room Sophia had never been allowed to enter as a child, always told it was for grown-ups, always left standing at the threshold. Now she sat in it, in one of the chairs arranged in a half circle, while the family lawyer, a composed man named Mr. Obiora, opened his briefcase with the unhurried gravity of someone who understood exactly what kind of power he held at this moment. Auntie Gloria sat like a queen, confident, already distributing the inheritance in her head. She had told the children this morning, within earshot of Sophia, that Chukwudi had built everything for his family and that his family would inherit it all. She had said the word family in that particular way, the way you say a word when you want everyone present to understand who it does and does not include. Mr. Obiora cleared his throat. He began to read. The first few items were expected: the cars, the personal effects, a modest cash sum for Auntie Gloria. She nodded, unsurprised. Emeka leaned forward. Tina played with her phone, waiting for her name. Then Mr. Obiora paused. He looked up from the papers and found Sophia's face across the room. "Before I continue," he said carefully, "there is a secondary document attached to this will, a testament. Mr. Chukwudi Okafor requested that it be read aloud in the presence of the entire family before the primary inheritance distribution is completed." Gloria frowned. "What secondary document? We were not told about any." "You were not told," Mr. Obiora said. His voice carried the particular authority of a man who did not need anyone's permission to proceed. "Because Mr. Okafor specifically requested that this information not be shared prior to this reading. I am asking for your patience and silence while I proceed." The room went very still. Sophia felt something shift in the air, something old, something that had been waiting. Mr. Obiora lifted the second document and began to read. "I, Chukwudi Okafor, write this testament in full health of mind and with full knowledge of what I am doing. What I am about to disclose I have carried for many years, a burden made heavier by love and made lighter now only by the truth I can no longer keep buried. Sophia was not just my brother's daughter. Her father, Emmanuel Obi, was my business partner, my closest friend, the man who, before he died, built half of everything you now call the Okafor Empire. The Lekki property portfolio, the commercial holdings in Abuja, the land in Enugu. We built those things together with equal hands, equal vision, equal sacrifice. When Emmanuel died in that accident, the same accident that took his wife, I made a promise to him. A promise I kept imperfectly and for which I carry shame. I promised to protect Sophia, to hold her father's share of everything in trust until she was old enough to claim it legally and safely. The decision to keep this from my family was not made lightly. I was afraid of what Gloria would do if she knew the child under our roof was not a charity case but a rightful owner of half the estate. I was afraid of the disruption, the conflict. I told myself I was protecting Sophia by keeping her close, by watching her quietly, by ensuring that no matter what happened inside those walls, she remained within reach of what was hers. I was a coward. I should have spoken sooner. I should have stood up for her in the dining table and in the storeroom and in every small moment where my silence permitted her to be treated as less than she was. But I am speaking now. Effective from the date of this reading, 52% of the total Okafor Obi estate, the properties, the holdings, the accounts attached to the original partnership signed between Emmanuel Obi and myself in 1998, belongs to Sophia, daughter of Emmanuel Obi, by right of inheritance and by the terms of the original business agreement signed between Emmanuel Obi and myself in 1998. She is not a guest in this family. She never was. Sophia, if you are reading this, or if someone is reading it to you, I am sorry. I hope the inheritance finds you well. I hope you can forgive an old man who
who loved you quietly when he should have loved you loudly. The room exploded. Auntie Gloria was on her feet before Mr. Obiora had finished the final sentence. "This is a lie!" Her voice came out high and sharp, nothing like the composed, polished woman she had been at breakfast. "This document has been forged. Sophia put someone up to this. Chukwudi would never..." Mrs. Okafor, Mr. Obiora did not raise his voice, but the weight in it was enough to stop her. This document was notarized 15 years ago and has been sealed in a law firm's vault since that date. It predates any opportunity for interference. Emeka stood up. "So you are saying all this time He could not finish the sentence. He looked at Sophia with an expression she had never seen on his face before. Something raw, something that looked almost like the beginning of shame. Tina had gone completely silent. She was staring at the table, her phone forgotten in her hand. Sophia sat still. She had not moved since Mr. Obiola began reading. She had not cried. She had not said a word. She sat in that chair in the room she had never been allowed to enter as a child, and she breathed slowly and carefully and let the weight of the truth settle over her, through her, into every place that once had been hollow. The storeroom, the cold plate, the burnt rice, the uniform with the undone hem, the envelope under the mattress in the dark. She is not a guest in this family. She never was. She pressed her lips together and looked at the window. Outside, the compound was bright with afternoon light.
3 months later, Sophia sat at the head of a long conference table in a glass-fronted office in Victoria Island, an office that now bore the name Obi Okafor Holdings on its entrance wall. Her father's name first. Mr. Obiora sat to her right, walking her through the final documentation. The property transfers had been processed. The legal challenges brought by Emeka's lawyer had collapsed, improperly argued, resting on nothing more than outrage and desperation. The account had been re-registered, the assets confirmed. Everything her father had built, with his hands, his vision, his friendship, it had come home. Auntie Gloria had stopped calling after the second week. Sophia did not take her calls in that period anyway, not out of cruelty, but because she understood that Gloria had nothing to say that was not rooted in wanting something back. And Sophia had learned a very long time ago at a small stool near a window that she did not owe anyone the scraps of herself simply to make them comfortable. Emeka had sent a message, long, winding, full of the kind of language people use when they are apologizing without quite wanting to apologize. "I didn't know. If I had known, I would have..." Sophia had read it once, closed it, not blocked him, not responded, simply left it there in her inbox as a record of what a conscience sounds like when it arrives 15 years too late. Tina, surprisingly, unexpectedly, had called. Not to ask for anything, not to justify herself, just to say in a small voice, "I'm sorry, Sophia. I was unkind to you and I knew it even then. I'm sorry." Sophia had sat with the phone pressed to her ear for a long moment. "I'm fine," she said finally. Not "it's okay," not "don't worry about it," just "thank you." Because the apology deserved acknowledgement, but the past was not going to be erased by one phone call, and Sophia was done pretending. What stayed with her, what she thought about in the evenings when she returned to her home, the bigger one now, with space and light, and a dining table where she sat at the center and ate warm, fresh food every night, was not the victory. Not the money or the legal win or the satisfaction of watching the people who discarded her discover what they had thrown away. What stayed with her was the envelope. Her uncle, in his flawed, fearful, complicated love, had left money under her mattress in the dark, had watched her quietly when no one was looking, had written a letter full of apology and truth that he could not bring himself to speak while he was alive. He had called her his little sunshine. He had kept her father's promise, imperfectly, but he had kept it. She had a framed photograph on her office desk now. Not of the compound, not of the business, not of any award, just a picture, old, slightly faded, of her father and her uncle as young men, standing in front of a half-built structure somewhere in Lekki, both of them laughing like people who believe fully in what they are building. 2 men, 1 empire, equal hands. She touched the edge of the frame sometimes in the quiet of her working day and thought about the kind of love that outlasts the people who carry it, the kind that survives bad decisions, long silence, stale food and storerooms, the kind that waits patiently inside sealed envelopes and locked law firm vaults until the right moment, until the girl who ate leftovers is finally ready to sit at the head of the table. She was ready now. The table was hers. It had always been hers. This story was brought to you by Rainer Tales. If this story moved you, if you saw someone you know in Sophia's journey, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. More stories like this are coming. See you in the next story.